Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would really appreciate it, and I promise to update daily. If you love this watch, you can see it and purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing one of the most underrated chronographs in the business. This is the Glashutte Original PanoGraph. 39.5 millimeters in yellow gold, a very traditional look and an untraditional take on the chronograph. This is part of a model series that debuted all the way back in 2002, and in many respects, it's been a timeless take on the flyback chronograph that looks as sharp as a dress watch today as it did back in the post-Y2K aftermath. Now, the watch is easy to wear on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. You ask for wide shots, here you go. 39.5 millimeters, super simple to fit on a wrist as small as, in my estimation, 13.5 centimeters circumference. This is a great complication for a smaller wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters circumference, again for reference. The watch is neither thick nor thin, but at 13.2 millimeters with a generously sloped conical bezel profile, it will fit underneath cuffs and not just jackets, shirts as well. Lug-to-lug, well, lug-to-lug is short at 45.8 millimeters, so this watch will wear well on that 13.5 centimeter circumference wrist, but at the same time, it's also shaped to wear well with short and tightly downturned lug ends. The spacing between the lugs 20 millimeters, so you'll have a bevy of OEM and aftermarket options, but this handsome, almost burgundy red Adobe mix, I can't quite place it, but it's a gorgeous brown-red alligator leather with a semi-gloss set of medium scales. It's got a little bit of bolstering, a folded edge, a monotone stitch, and there is calfskin on the underside. You can see, don't be fooled, it says alligator leather, but the alligator leather is the top, the calf is on the bottom. Now, all Geo watches don't come with full clasps, so this is an upscale appointment, and it's a beautiful clasp. You're certainly not shorted the metal, Geo giving you a double fold with a nicely curved undercarriage that traces the soft underside of your wrist. You can see it's a double fold, so it works better with a small wrist than the big one fold deployants that can sometimes pinch a small wrist. And it's a twin trigger release, so it can only deploy when positively disengaged for additional security. It's a handsome and substantial piece that nicely counterweights the watch on the wrist. The case band is simple but strong. The lugs are stepped out from the case band, though not as sharply distinct as, for example, a Longa case. You can see that the lugs do have a distinct form that's separate from the case band, though they are both of a horizontal satin finish. There are some polished aspects about the case back and the bezel that do stand out and break up the thickness of the case visually, and you'll note that the hoods of the lugs are nicely polished. On the crown side, you can see the crown itself, Glashutte Original signed, as well as the lozenge-style chronograph pushers, and you're going to have to remember that this is an unconventional chronograph. You actually start and stop using the pusher at what would conventionally be 4 o'clock on the dial. So a little bit out of step with usual practice. The good news is you can't accidentally damage the watch, because even if you go straight to the pusher at 2 o'clock, it's a flyback chronograph. So you reset and restart with no hazard to the movement. Now you will note one of the curious innovations that this watch inherited from its elder brother, the PanoRetrograph, was this series of concentric sweeps. These concentric arcs represent 10 minutes each. So you actually have 0 to 10, or I should say 0 to 9, then you have 10 to 20, and then you have 20 to 30. And so it makes it easier to discern the time without taking up an inordinate amount of space with a giant register on the dial side. You can imagine, to create a chronograph register this large, it would have dominated the dial. By using these concentric and consecutive arcs, you get a large, easy-to-read minute display with none of the compromises to dial geometry. The dial has a satin silver finish, and there's a sharply concentric circular brushed finish to the hour track that stands out distinctly from the matte finish, the warm opaline finish of the primary dial. There's a stepped aperture for the panorama datum, and unlike many Glashutte Original timepieces which feature a pusher adjuster, this one does feature an integral quickset accessed through the crown. It also features hacking or stop seconds that you access through the crown, so you can set the watch precisely to a reference time. You'll also note that the indices for the hours are all applique yellow gold for an upscale finish to the dial. Turn it all over, and now you're looking at manufacturer caliber 6101. This is a handsome movement. You get an awful lot here. Manual wind, 42-hour power reserve, lateral clutch, column wheel chronograph. You can see the pivots of the levers actuating the chronograph functions are actually jeweled. The entire lateral clutch, both the intermediate and the driving wheel, fully jeweled. And that's impressive because the likes of this refinement you won't necessarily see on all of the Geneva hallmark movements featuring lateral clutches. So a fully jeweled lateral clutch is truly rich. You also note the retention spring in Baroque form and everything immaculately finished. Glashutte stripes across the bridges perfectly aligned. Black polished screws. You can see a black polished screw atop the column wheel. You'll also note that the watch features blued screws. So you have kiln fired oxidized blue screws and you have black polished screw heads, both for different reasons. Blued screws are used for physical assembly of components, and then the polished screws here are used for adjustment of the timekeeping or the chronograph mechanisms. The balance beating away at 28,800 vibration per hour, and you'll note engine turning across the base plate, as well as freehand engraving of the half bridge for the balance. You'll also note a black polished nameplate, Glashutte Original, plus a black polished swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism. The column wheel itself is big, beautiful, and open. You can see that huge lateral clutch moving into and out of contact with the center, and you can see the recentering hammers, remarkably jeweled at their base, falling on the hard cams at center. Incredibly open. This is a large, properly sized movement built specifically for this case. The hallmark of a true manufacturer. 30 meters water resistant. It's not an aquatic watch, but then again, for a big, open, expansive view of a traditional lateral clutch column wheel chronograph, you can keep your screwed down water resistant case back. Give me this. You can see this masterpiece from Saxony and make it yours on the watch box.